Kvartsfinalerna på ESL One Katowice är i full rulle och vi har med oss någon som inte är så vanlig framför kameran, vENdetta. We're gonna do this in English. You okay with that?
That's perfectly fine with me.
Not Norwegian?
No.
Okay, so what are you doing here in Katowice?
Yeah, right now I'm doing a bit of observing and a bit of analyst work. So yeah, a bit of both.
All right, so being on this podium, talking in front of the camera, that's new to you, right?
Yeah, it's somewhat new, but it doesn't feel that new once you get up there. At the end of the day, it's basically just having a conversation about Counter-Strike, and I do that every day, so it's not that far out of my comfort zone.
But this isn't your first time working at a major. You've been observing before, right?
Yeah, I went to ESL Cologne in August, I think it was, and had the observer gig there. That was really the first time I really did work behind the scenes at a LAN event, so that was pretty exciting. So I got some experience from there, and ESL decided that they wanted me back, so I'm happy about that.
All right, so observing and being on the analyst desk, obviously a big difference. Which one do you prefer?
Analyst desk by far. I don't particularly think that I'm an especially good observer. In fact, I have to observe so much differently from how I normally watch CS at home, because that wouldn't be watchable at all. That I don't think I do anything special. So I definitely do analyst stuff and desk jobs more often if possible, because that's what I tend to do. I like to analyze the game. I like to think about things besides just getting headshots.
All right, so speaking of that, can you elaborate that? On the analyst desk, what's your job more specifically?
Well, my job, I guess we kind of share job responsibilities basically in just trying to break down the game. Obviously it depends on where the conversation leads and whatnot, but more or less the idea is to bring insight to whatever team is going up against each other, but whether or not you have some somewhat vital statistics that you can bring up that would be relevant to the situation and that type of thing, and see how that plays out when you come back after a game. See if you've talked about Shoxy being the best entry fragger for Envious, by quite a margin in front of Happy, then did that actually play out in the game you just saw? Was there any deviation from what you've initially stated and that type of thing? And yeah, just trying to dig deeper into the game and provide some insight for perhaps new viewers.
All right, and if you're a player, you can do a great round and you feel comfortable, satisfied with that. If you're observing and you catch a great round, you can be really satisfied with that. What's the what do you call it? What's that thing for the analyst's desk?
Well, I guess the closest thing you could probably get is predictions, or if you pre-game analyze the game style of a team. Let's say you talk about Envious and you go into a map like Cash and you say well, I know from my research that Happy will pick up the AWP eventually. He will play A side by himself by the quad boxes, and this is how their rotations are going to work. Obviously that's time dependent how far you can go into that, but giving out the basic gist of how a team will play prior to them doing it is a pretty good feeling, because that gives you validation that you actually know what you're talking about.
All right, so when you're not at majors in a student tie, what is life like for you? Is this your career now?
I guess it's as close as a career as it can get, but by trade I'm a student, so not a lot of high rolling going on these days. So yeah, pretty much just in my apartment in Oslo, playing Counter-Strike, studying and commentating from time to time. That's pretty much it.
All right, and we talked to Anders, your Room on Fire co-guy, I suppose, because you've been associated with Room on Fire for a long time.
Yeah.
And he said you probably have the most knowledge of Counter-Strike overall in the whole world, more than maybe Thorin, who's famous for being a historian. Yeah. Do you feel that too?
I feel I definitely know a lot about Counter-Strike, for sure. Esports in general, not as much, but I feel fairly confident that I know quite a bit about Counter-Strike, because I started out in 2003 with playing 1.6, or 1.5 and 1.6, and eventually transitioned into CSS. So I've had the best of both worlds when it comes to actually knowing the history behind the two scenes and basically being a part of it. And the same thing goes for CSGO. I've been there since alpha, beta, and all up until this point. So I've yeah, lived through the exact moments that you end up talking about. So I feel pretty confident that I actually know quite a bit. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, do you know anything about like Condition Zero or CS Online or Crossfire maybe?
Crossfire, Sudden Attack in CS Online, yes, and CS Online 2 to a certain extent, yes. Condition Zero, no. I'm not really sure if they even had a competitive scene except for the 1.6 events where they had to play CZ instead.
All right. So who is the best CS Online player in history?
Best CS Online in history? Well, the easiest way to go about it is probably looking at the Chinese scene, because in China they still play 3 different games. Tyloo is the primary example of that. Tyloo still plays CSGO, CS Online and Crossfire. And actually that's kind of like keyed here, the Brazilians, they also used to play 3 games. And I think Sudden Attack was one of them instead of CS Online with Crossfire. But yeah, so you'd probably go with someone like Kings or Mo from Tyloo, because they were the most successful Chinese teams, and in China that's where CSO is the biggest. You could go over to the Korean teams, but most of the old school Korean players from, Lunatic High, Eastro, We Made Fox, Project KR, what have you, they don't really play anymore.
Alright, that's upper class knowledge. But okay, so being here, doing this, will we see you do this more often now, after you've been doing it on a major?
Hopefully. I mean, it's up to events whether or not they think I'm good enough to do it, and if I've done a good enough job to, even be worthy of a consideration. I hope I can, convince some organizations, and I do have some events lined up, not necessarily for doing desk work, but commentating, which is kind of weird for me, because, yeah, I don't exactly bring that hype to it, because I'm a very, what should you call it? I'm not the kind of guy who brings hype. I'm not the play-by-play guy. I'll be there, cut and dry, just talking about what people did wrong.
All right. Well, hopefully you can do that now as well. And good luck in the rest of the tournament. And do you have any final words?
Oh, just thank you so much for taking the time to interview me. This is a bit of a first for me, so a lot of fun. Yeah, I hope you really enjoy it. And thanks to all the readers of Fragbike. It's been a site I've been listening since I started playing CS, so very cool.